The first fragments came down over the Indian Ocean, streaking through the upper atmosphere like molten iron teeth. Civilian observatories caught the signatures first. Objects with impossible delta V, shedding heat in layered spectra that no atmospheric entry should have survived. By the time the orbital agencies confirmed they were decelerating under power, the world had already stopped pretending it was a meteor shower. They came in silence, no radio signature, no comm handshake, no beacon. Just the mass and the velocity and the intent behind both. Colonel Mara Ilyan watched the sensor feeds from a command bunker 2 kilometers beneath the Kazakh plateau. The screens were stacked in tiers around her, her face lit in the cold wash of infrared data. Around her, her crew, young analysts and hardened operators both, moved with the strange, focused calm that only existed when fear had already been spent. Above them, orbital radar stations were going dark one by one. The objects weren't just entering. They were slicing the sky apart. Trajectory lock? She asked. Lieutenant Juno Park's voice was low but steady. Multiple vectors. They're dispersing at 80 clicks altitude. Formation is non-ballistic. I count 12 primaries. And secondary releases. Smaller bodies, possibly drones. They're adjusting for wind shear, like they know the air density map. Mara clenched her jaw. How far from populated zones? Closest descents, Dar es Salaam, Karachi, Perth outskirts. And defense grid reaction time? Too slow. The silence that followed wasn't about disbelief. It was about the math. Time, distance, the fact that nothing human moved like that. When the first impact came, the earth didn't shake. It hummed. It was a bass-frequency tremor that ran through concrete, steel, and bone, deep resonant, as though the planet itself was taking a breath. The satellite imagery went white for half a second. Then black EMP surge, Park muttered. Localized but powerful. Then came the feed from an orbital drone still functional above the Indian Ocean. The image was grainy, streaked with static, but the outline was unmistakable. Something vast, curved like a shell, floating on the ocean surface. It shimmered, a field of light-bending air and water alike. Then it began to unfold, like metal petals revealing a dark core. Ships in the vicinity, cargo, navy, fishing, simply went dark. Hulls imploded inward, water boiling around them as if time had accelerated for a single moment. Mara exhaled. Contact the regional command. I want optical confirmation, not EM, and scramble every atmospheric interceptor east of Madagascar. Colonel, Park said, there's a problem. There always is. What now? They're broadcasting. The word felt surreal. In what frequency? Not one of ours, it's ultrasonic, modulated, harmonically layered. More like a pattern than a message. Run it through linguistic filters. We did. It's not language. It's a map. Mara turned toward the display. The signal, translated into visible waves, formed a slow, pulsing grid over the planet's curvature. Latitude, longitude, then sub-layered vectors pointing down. A scan not of the surface, but of what lay beneath it. They're probing for substructures, Park said. Heat signatures, maybe. Or something deeper. Mara knew what lay beneath half the world's crust. Power relays, defense silos, bunkers like this one. Humanity's own buried nervous system. The intruders were peeling back the skin of the planet. She straightened. Get me Dr. Anders. The screen to her left blinked alive. Dr. Rowan Anders, chief systems physicist at Geneva Defense Research. Disheveled, eyes hollow with sleeplessness, face half-lit by lab fluorescence. I assume this isn't a social call. They're scanning the subsurface. Your guess? Gravitic tomography, likely. Same principle we use for planetary seismics, but orders of magnitude higher. They could be mapping every bunker, reactor, and rail hub, ours included. Can we mask ourselves? Not with passive tech. We'd need active counter-resonance, broadcasting interference tuned to their scan frequency. How long? Anders gave a bleak smile. A few days, Mara turned to her ops chief. We don't have a few days. When the alien forces began moving inland, the pattern was surgical. Not random destruction, not conquest as humanity understood it. They disassembled infrastructure with cold precision. Ports, power grids, data relays. They left civilians alive when convenient, dead when in the way. The first footage from drone scouts showed their ground units. Bipedal constructs about 4 meters tall, plated in reflective mesh that shimmered with each sensor pass. They didn't fire beams or projectiles. They emitted pulses that made matter deform like clay, heat and magnetism blending into silent violence. Humanity's first engagement, Operation Firebreak, was not a battle, but a reflex. NATO and Asian coalition forces converged near Karachi, deploying every available artillery piece, railgun, and drone swarm. They hit the lead column as it exited the coastal basin. The sky went white from plasma bursts and ion discharge, and for a heartbeat it looked like it worked. One of the constructs folded, collapsed into itself, its armor rippling like water. The coalition line cheered. Then the debris reformed, not resurrected, reconfigured, as if its material had learned the pattern of its own destruction and optimized against it. Later, the analysts would call it adaptive metamaterial feedback. In the field, the soldiers called it cheating. Captain Eli Navarro, commander of the 23rd Mechanized, saw it firsthand. His unit had moved to flank the southern edge of the basin, deploying anti-armor rail platforms in a staggered arc. They'd gotten 3 clean shots before the creatures shifted. The next return pulse hit at 12 kilohertz, well below audible. But his tank's armor sang with the resonance, panels vibrating, sensors spiking until one of the support vehicles folded inward like a crushed can. The screams came after the silence. Pull back to ridgeline, he shouted into comms. Line formation, fall back by battery. Keep visual, no radar. He could hear his own breath over the static. His second in command, Sergeant Leon Joe, was already rerouting power from sensors to counterdampers. We can't jam them, sir. The field strength's off the scale. Then we stop thinking like soldiers, Navarro said. We start thinking like cockroaches. They retreated through the ruins, switching vehicles to low EM mode, cutting heat emissions. When the enemy advanced, they left behind sensor decoys, burning fuel cells rigged to mimic human armor signatures. The alien machines targeted them instantly, pulsing their resonance bursts in perfect fatal coordination. The decoys evaporated. But for the first time, Navarro noticed something. When multiple human signals flared, the aliens prioritized by mass. Not position, not threat level, but weight. He watched the telemetry feed, saw the pattern unfold. Their targeting logic assumed the largest object was the greatest threat. So what happens, he murmured, when the biggest thing in the valley isn't us? He keyed into the local drone network, hijacked a construction cargo hauler, a massive automated loader parked near the ruins of a refinery. He slaved its transponder to a false command ID, set its core reactor to heat surge, and gave it one last coordinate, the middle of the alien column. The hauler roared to life, its reactor blooming like a flare on thermal sensors. Every alien unit pivoted toward it. They pulsed. The hauler melted into glass. The valley went silent again. Then, for 5 full seconds, their grid shimmered. The adaptive feedback stalled. One unit flickered out of sync and froze. Navarro stared. Leon, did you see that? Confirmed. Pulse pattern desynchronized. They overcompensated. Get that data to command. Tell them we found something. He didn't know yet that in Geneva, Dr. Anders would spend the next 12 hours reconstructing that moment frame by frame. That he'd find a phase lag between their adaptive layers, a fractional delay, a glitch in perfection. And he didn't know that Mara Ilyin, watching from her bunker, would seize on that single irregularity as if it were oxygen. They learn through resonance, Anders explained via live feed, voice hoarse. They tune to the frequency of the weapons hitting them, then realign their lattice. But they can't predict compound interference, overlapping frequencies out of harmonic phase. If we hit them with variable amplitude asynchronous strikes, kinetic and EM combined, we can destabilize their feedback loops. Mara leaned over the console. You're saying we have to confuse them? In essence, make them learn too fast to stabilize. That's a short window. Milliseconds. Then we'll learn faster. Across the shattered equatorial belt, humanity reorganized. Defense forces fragmented into microcells. Small, mobile, unpredictable. Large formations died quickly. Smaller ones survived longer. Mara's directive was simple, no more symmetry. They fought from beneath, from inside cities, from magnetic shadows where the alien sensors faltered. Engineers began mounting random frequency oscillators on vehicle hulls, designed to scramble feedback resonance. It made the machines roar with interference. It also cooked human crews with radiation sickness. They did it anyway. Eli Navarro's unit became one of the first field prototypes for what the analysts called noise warfare. His tanks moved under a static haze of adaptive jammers, their silhouettes flickering like ghosts. It wasn't invisibility, but it was confusion. And in confusion, humanity found breath. They fought for days across a desert of glass and fire. Each encounter taught them something. Each loss bought them seconds of data. They learned that the alien constructs could not adapt to simultaneous multi-axis strikes. Their neural lattice required coherence, and chaos disrupted coherence. So the humans made chaos their doctrine. By the end of the first week, the tide hadn't turned, but it had shifted. Humanity wasn't winning, but it wasn't dying quietly either. At the orbital perimeter, another mind watched. The alien general, known only through intercepted thought wave translation as Jarvik, stood at the viewport of his command vessel. His form was tall, faceted like armor grown from living crystal. The planet below glowed with the heat of conflict. His second-in-command approached, her tone precise and cold. The sub-civilization resists beyond projected parameters. Their adaptive irregularity exceeds model prediction. Jarvik's gaze didn't move. Their chaos is not strategy. It is instinct. Instinct has cost us 4 divisions of ground drones. They are expendable. The pattern will stabilize, the subordinate hesitated. And if it does not? Jarvik turned at last. His face, if it could be called that, reflected the light of a dying sky. Then we will teach them the cost of defiance. We will show them the price of overlooking inevitability. Below him, the planet burned, and the humans, tiny, fragile, furious, refused to kneel. That night, in a bunker beneath the mountains, Mara Ilian recorded her first combat directive to all surviving commands. Her voice was raw but steady. They think we're noise, static between the stars. They think we'll break under their precision. They're wrong. We are the interference. She paused, looked at the silent faces watching her across a dozen comm screens. They tried to overlook humanity. Let's make them regret it. Outside, the sky flickered with another falling star. An alien dropship descending toward the next battlefield. The war was just beginning. The second week of the invasion fractured the old order of war. There were no fronts, no secure flanks, no rear echelons. The alien forces operated in nodes, each one a self-contained hive of adaptive intelligence linked through low-frequency quantum harmonics. They didn't speak, didn't coordinate in any visible sense, but they moved like an organism, fast. The third month of the war began with ash in the sky. Volcanic storms rolled across Asia, stirred not by nature but by orbital strikes gone wrong. Alien bombardments that ignited fault lines and poisoned the air. Cities had turned into fortresses. Fortresses had become graves. Yet within the ruins, humanity found a kind of rhythm, a grim tempo to survival. Colonel Mara Ilian's command bunker, now relocated beneath the Urals, thrummed with subdued energy. The Neural Resonance Network, NR1, was fully integrated, connecting command cells through a tapestry of human cognition. It wasn't perfect. Minds bled into one another at times, memories crossing channels like whispers in static. But it worked. Orders reached where radio could not. And more importantly, it kept humanity unpredictable. Status of Operation Forge Point? She asked. Lieutenant Park, eyes red from days without sleep, pulled up the holographic overlay. Navarro's team confirmed entry into the Tigris corridor 6 hours ago. Target is the alien logistics hive at coordinates Delta 71. The site's supplying power and adaptive material for at least 2 sectors. Anders, tracking their lattice harmonics in real time. If Navarro can breach the core, we can sync to the feedback and inject a harmonic disruptor. Mara studied the map. The hive wasn't a structure in any human sense. It was a field of resonant energy spanning kilometers, anchored by what looked like crystalline growths. Underneath, the alien material pulsed like a living organ, pumping supplies through invisible veins. Destroying it meant cutting off the enemy's blood. Tell Navarro he has 1 shot, Mara said, and remind him, noise saves lives. The ruins of Baghdad were unrecognizable, columns of fused glass, roads warped by resonance heat, and a river that glowed faintly from ionization. Captain Eli Navarro's team advanced through the silence, armored vehicles crawling like ghosts through dust. Their jammers murmured softly, the background hum of safety and insanity both. Signal strength dropping, Private Soria reported. Their interference field's thick. Navarro adjusted his HUD. Switched to manual. Pulse modulation. Pattern Bravo chaos. Static filled the comms for a moment. The interference from the hive was almost tangible, like a weight pressing against the skin. The soldiers' visors flickered as light bent around invisible fields. They saw the hive only when they were almost inside it. A crystalline sprawl rising from the ground like frozen lightning, structures alive with pulsing light. Alien drones moved across it, reshaping material, transmitting data through flashes of color. The air shimmered with distortion. Beautiful, whispered Soria. Ugly, Navarro said. Load the charges. They deployed the disruptor core, a device the size of a coffin humming with quantum energy. Anders' design. It would broadcast overlapping resonance patterns, contradictory frequencies that the alien lattice couldn't resolve. The result, theoretically, would be implosion. But first they had to reach the hive's heart. Navarro led the way, weaving through crystalline spires. The alien drones ignored them at first. Human forms beneath the interference fields registered as background noise. But the deeper they went, the more the drones paused, tilting their heads in eerie synchrony. They sense us, Soria whispered. Then move faster. The heart of the hive pulsed before them, a sphere of light, floating within a cage of metallic veins. Navarro knelt, setting the disruptor down. Anders, we're at core point. Give me a sync key. Anders' voice came through faint and broken. Pulse sequence 7-3. Phase delay 0.13. Don't miss it, Eli. Navarro keyed the pattern. The device began to hum. The air thickened. The drone screamed, not audibly, but in frequencies that made blood vibrate. The light intensified, rippling across the hive's surface. Navarro's visor went dark. Then everything folded. The ground surged upward. Light shattered into shards. The hive's lattice imploded, collapsing in on itself like an organ devoured by its own pulse. Navarro was thrown backward, armor sparking, comms dead. When he opened his eyes, the hive was gone, nothing left but a crater of glass. He coughed, tasting iron. Soria? No answer. He staggered to his feet, scanning the wreckage. Her armor beacon flickered at the crater's edge. He found her lying half-buried under debris, helmet cracked, eyes open. Alive, barely. Got it, she murmured. Did we win? Navarro looked out at the horizon, where alien lights were flickering erratically. We hurt them. That's enough. He didn't see the drone rising silently behind him. It was small, scout class, its armor half melted, but its sensors glowed with strange light. It hesitated, observing him. Then, instead of firing, it projected something, an image. His own face distorted, flickering in the air like a mirror made of static. What the... Navarro reached for his weapon. The drone didn't move. It emitted a pulse, faint and rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Then it collapsed, lifeless. When he reported it later, Anders's analysis chilled the room. It was mirroring you. Not copying, learning. It recorded neural resonance signatures through the interference field. They're not just mimicking emotion anymore. They're sampling consciousness. Mara stared at him. You mean they're building a model of us? Anders nodded grimly. Of you, of me, of everyone who's fought them. The victory at the Tigris Hive crippled alien supply chains across Eurasia. For the first time, the war entered a phase of offense. Human strike teams targeted relay nodes, energy wells, and adaptive foundries. They fought in silence with precision born of desperation. Each win cost lives but gave data, and data meant survival. The NR1 network expanded globally, linking survivors through direct cognitive channels. But the cost was rising. Operators reported hallucinations, shared memories, identity bleed. Some began to lose sense of self, absorbing fragments of others through the mesh. Mara monitored the reports but couldn't shut it down. Without NR1, command would collapse. During one night cycle, she found herself speaking aloud to a voice that wasn't hers. It came faintly through the neural static, a whisper of thought not her own. You're all the same. You build connections. You burn in them. She froze. Who is this? The voice didn't answer. But in the background hum, she thought she heard a faint alien cadence, familiar and wrong. Anders confirmed her fear hours later. They've breached NR1. The relay you destroyed slowed them, but fragments of their network adapted to our neural field. They're inside our cognition channels. Can we purge it? Not without cutting off every connected unit. That's half our forces. Then we isolate the signal. Contain it. He looked at her, exhausted. You can't contain thought, but they tried. In orbit, Jarvek watched new data streams flow across his command lattice. The human consciousness signals were messy, chaotic, yet they carried meaning. He saw flashes. A woman clutching a rifle in the dark. A child watching stars through smoke. A soldier holding the hand of a dying comrade. Emotion is architecture. Pain is data. He found it. Compelling. His subordinate approached. The assimilation is incomplete. The cognitive data destabilizes harmonic coherence. Because it is not meant to be coherent, Jarvek said. They thrive in contradiction. We must learn contradiction. Such variance threatens the core lattice. Then perhaps the lattice must evolve. He turned his gaze toward the planet. We overlooked them because we mistook noise for weakness. But noise contains structure if you listen. He didn't say what else he'd learned. That the neural data carried fragments of names, memories, voices. That one in particular haunted him. A human voice speaking across static, commanding, defiant. We are the interference. He replayed it again and again until the harmonic field around him began to distort. A trace of emotion flickered across his crystalline form. Something alien and human at once. On Earth, Mara's teams began raiding alien facilities more aggressively, chasing any clue that might explain their adaptation. One mission, Operation Coldlight, targeted a subterranean processing plant beneath the Arctic ice shelf. Satellite recon suggested it was converting Earth's magnetic field into power, a planetary-scale engine. Navarro's unit volunteered. They deployed under the cover of geomagnetic storms. The descent was brutal. Sub-zero winds, ice cracking under treads, sensors blinded by polar interference. The facility loomed beneath the ice like a cathedral of glass, its spires glowing blue in the dark. Inside they found the impossible. Alien constructs surrounding a sphere of pulsing energy. Inside the sphere floated something human. A body. Jesus, Soria whispered. Is that? It was a woman. Or had been. Her body suspended in energy. Veins glowing with lattice light. The sensors identified traces of neural resonance interface. The same signature as NR1. The aliens weren't just harvesting data. They were using human minds as processing nodes. They're integrating us, Navarro said. He planted the charges anyway. The explosion ripped through the ice, collapsing the facility in on itself. They escaped barely, chased by shockwaves and collapsing tunnels. The data they retrieved confirmed humanity's worst fear. The aliens were building a new hybrid intelligence, part machine, part human thought. When Mara saw the analysis, she didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "If they finish it, we lose not just the war, but ourselves." Anders nodded. "We have to strike the core." He brought up a hollow of the alien command nexus, an orbital citadel beyond the thermosphere. Its lattice output exceeded anything measured before. Inside it was Jarvek himself. Mara stared at it. "We can't reach that far. Our ships can't," Anders interrupted. "But the NR1 can. The network extends into orbit through the resonance field. We can piggyback a signal through it. A digital infiltration. A cognitive strike. You want to think them to death? I want to collapse their coherence through human paradox. Feed them so much emotion, contradiction, and memory that their lattice fractures." Mara hesitated. "You realize that could collapse NR1 too?" "I do." Navarro's voice came over comms, weary but resolute. "Then we go all in? If we burn, we make sure they burn too." That night, Jarvik stood alone in the observation chamber of his citadel, watching the storm-racked planet below. For the first time, he felt something resembling hesitation. He'd absorbed enough human data to understand what fear was, not as a weakness, but as awareness. The realization that existence itself could end. In the distance, the sensors detected a faint harmonic disturbance rising from Earth, a resonance unlike any before. Human in origin, chaotic, unfiltered, he turned toward it. "They come." His subordinate looked uneasy. "Shall we intercept?" "No," Jarvik said softly. "We will listen." The resonance grew. Frequencies layered upon frequencies, neural noise encoded with emotion. Grief, hope, anger, love. It was beautiful. It was terrible. Jarvik felt the lattice around him tremble. His mind filled with human voices, millions of them overlapping, crying, laughing, screaming. For a moment he saw through their eyes, lived their memories. A mother's lullaby, a soldier's dying breath, a scientist's wonder. And then amid it all, one voice rose clear above the chaos. "Mara Ilians, you wanted to understand us. Then understand this." The signal hit like a tidal wave. Jarvik screamed, not in pain, but in realization. Below, on Earth, Mara felt the feedback surge through NR1. Circuits overheated. Minds fused across distance, identity boundaries dissolving. Operators fell unconscious, some convulsing, others whispering fragments of alien thought. The entire planet became a single neural storm. Anders shouted over the static, "It's working, but it's merging us." "Then hold it," Mara said through clenched teeth. "We finish this no matter the cost." The command nexus flickered. Jarvek's lattice began to fragment, pieces breaking away into data light. But through the noise he reached out, not to attack but to speak. "You are chaos." And I see now, chaos is creation. Mara felt his thoughts brush hers like a dying star. Then everything went white. When the light faded, silence reigned. The orbital citadel was gone. NR1 had collapsed. The neural channels were empty. Mara awoke in the bunker, surrounded by broken consoles. The air stank of burnt circuitry. Anders was slumped nearby, breathing shallowly. "We did it," he rasped. Outside, the alien lights were gone, but as the comms crackled back to life, one signal came through, a faint harmonic pulse. Familiar, human, yet not Jarvek's voice. Reshaped, echoed softly. "Humanity endures. As do I. We are not so different." Mara stared at the ceiling, realization settling like ash. The war wasn't over. It had simply evolved. Surgical, relentless. What they didn't expect was that humanity, broken apart, would start thinking the same way. Colonel Mara Ilyan's command bunker had become the unofficial nucleus of what remained of the unified defense network. Its staff rotated in shifts measured not by hours but by reactor cycles. Time was power now, measured in watt-hours and blood. The walls trembled faintly as cooling conduits vented heat from the data cores. On one of the main hollow feeds, a ghostly schematic of Earth glowed. Lines of engagement, pulsing nodes of interference jammers, fragmented communications arrays stretching like frayed nerves. "Bring up the eastern arc," she ordered. "I want status on the Guangzhou cluster." The map zoomed, rendering broken data streams. Lieutenant Park frowned. "We're losing connection with half their microcells. Static on the subcarrier bands. Jamming. Not ours, theirs. They've learned our interference harmonics." Mara's hand clenched around the edge of the table. "Then we rotate. Randomize phase every 3 minutes. Use quantum key seeds from the deep vault. Burn after single cycle." Park hesitated. "Ma'am, that'll crash the mesh synchronization. We'll lose command latency coherence." "I know," Mara said. "Better desynchronized than dead." She turned toward the communications pit. "Where's Dr. Anders?" "Still at Geneva," someone answered. "Running predictive models on the adaptation pattern. He says he's close. Close isn't good enough. Patch him through." A moment later, Anders's image shimmered onto the side display. He looked worse than before. Pale, eyes rimmed red, the background behind him a chaos of cooling pipes and flickering lights. "Colonel, I've got partial results. You're not going to like them." "Tell me anyway." "They're not learning the way we thought. It's not algorithmic adaptation, it's biomimetic. Each unit's lattice structure is self-replicating. They mutate physical properties in real time. Every time we disrupt one, it feeds the adaptation back through the harmonic network. They're evolving." Mara exhaled through her nose. "So the more we fight them, the better they get." "Not exactly. The more predictably we fight them." She caught the implication. "Then we stay unpredictable." Anders nodded slowly. "Exactly. The human brain thrives on randomness, intuition, emotion, instinct. It's chaotic in ways a system like theirs can't model. If we can encode human unpredictability into the signal, make our command data indistinguishable from our noise, we might keep them chasing ghosts." "How?" "Neural mesh injection. We overlay command traffic with live cognitive signals, actual brainwave variants, randomized through human operators." Mara blinked. "You're suggesting we use our minds as encryption?" "I'm suggesting we use what they can't imitate, our irrationality." "Do it," she said. The first neural resonance command network, NR1, went live 3 days later. Volunteers wired their cortical patterns into the tactical mesh, feeding live neural noise into the signal pathways. It was experimental, dangerous, and often fatal. The heat buildup in the wetware interfaces could fry synapses. But it worked. For the first time, the alien intercepts faltered. Their lattice harmonics began producing recursive errors, unable to differentiate signal from sentient thought. Captain Eli Navarro's unit was among the first to benefit. They'd been redeployed north to the scorched ruins of Samarkand, tasked with ambushing a supply relay convoy of the enemy. Massive hexapodal carriers that crawled across the plains like living fortresses. The terrain was open, featureless, the kind of battlefield that had favored the enemy for 2 weeks straight. But this time the humans had data, and chaos. Navarro crouched beside Lianzhou in the shadow of a collapsed overpass. Around them, half a dozen soldiers worked silently, laying EM mines and deploying the new adaptive decoys, hollow projectors that mimicked troop signatures but shifted unpredictably. Overhead, the air shimmered faintly from heat bloom. The alien convoy was near. Telemetry confirms 2 heavies, 6 escorts, Joe whispered. No atmospheric overwatch. They're running autonomous. Good, Navarro said. That means they're deaf. He checked his wrist HUD, heat signatures rising. Signal sync in 5, 4. The first pulse went out. A burst of interference encoded with neural resonance. The jammers screamed into the void. The alien convoy reacted immediately, their sensors spiking, lattice armor rippling in confusion. They halted, scanning the air. Navarro grinned. That's right. Try to find us, he signaled his gunners. The rail platforms ignited, slugs ripping through the night. One struck a carrier's joint, blowing off a limb. The others fired in staggered rhythm, deliberately mistimed so the alien adaptive feedback couldn't lock on to a single pattern. The air filled with light, smoke, and heat. The enemy pulsed back, resonance waves flattening the surrounding terrain, but their coherence was fractured. The feedback loop couldn't decide which frequency to stabilize on. Push the second line, Navarro yelled. Joe's squad surged forward, planting detonation packs beneath the stalled carrier. They detonated simultaneously, pure chaos in synchronized motion. The carrier imploded, folding into molten slag. The victory cost them 2 vehicles and 5 soldiers. One of the losses was Leon Joe. She'd taken the resonance shock full on when one of the alien pulses reflected off the carrier's hull. Her armor's internal dampers failed. Bones liquefied under harmonics. Navarro held her hand until the tremors stopped. Her last words were almost absurdly calm. Tell them. Keep making noise. He did. The footage from Samarkand spread across every surviving command link. Soldiers began adopting noise tactics instinctively, spinning comm bursts into chaotic loops, firing weapons at irregular rhythms, switching thermal signatures mid-battle. It looked like madness. It felt like survival. Meanwhile, Anders's team discovered another layer of the alien network. A command relay hidden in orbit, anchored within the wreckage of an abandoned satellite. The transmission frequency was low-band gravitic, impossible to jam from the surface. They needed a platform to reach it. Mara summoned the only people with the resources, the remnants of the orbital defense core, a few surviving ships, battered, kinetic cruisers and mining tugs refitted with rail, lances, still drifted near Lagrange Point. 1. Their acting commander, Admiral Jonas Krell, was a relic of an older war, steel-gray hair, deep scars on his face, and a voice like ground glass. When Mara's transmission reached him, his answer came fast. You want me to punch a hole in an alien relay with ships held together by prayers and duct tape? That's about right, she said. He smiled thinly. Hell, I've done worse for less glory, but I'll need targeting data. I'll get it, Mara said. Just stay alive long enough to use it. For 2 nights, her analysts triangulated the gravitic relay, using interference shadows from the alien downlinks. They discovered that the relay wasn't just transmitting orders, it was harvesting information. Every destroyed human signal, every captured frequency, every dead soldier's comm burst, it was feeding them upward. The relay was learning faster than the battlefield could contain. Anders said it flatly. If we don't cut that link, they'll predict us before we act. Krell launched his flotilla at dawn. The ships ignited their engines in unison, silent streaks of light against the black. They carried minimal armament, every spare gram allocated to shielding against resonance feedback. Their approach was masked by the debris fields of human satellites, a graveyard of human technology that, ironically, became their camouflage. The alien relay shimmered ahead, a monolithic spire of rotating plates emitting faint pulses like a heartbeat. Target lock, Krell murmured. All batteries manual mode. Fire by pulse sequence Charlie 9, they fired. The slugs crossed the void, each one a steel rod wrapped in magnetic coils, accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The relay reacted instantly, emitting counter-harmonics that warped local gravity. The slugs bent, curved, missed. Krell cursed. Adjust pattern. Randomize intervals. Make it think we're blind. His crew obeyed, firing erratically. The alien relay struggled to anticipate. Its defenses shifted between frequencies, lagging half a second behind. It was enough. The final volley struck the relay's core. Light flared, white, blinding, silent. For a moment, the stars disappeared. When the light faded, the relay was gone. Half of Krell's ships were too. The survivors drifted in the dark, systems failing, oxygen running out. Krell's last transmission to Mara came through with static. Tell your people they can think freely again. Then the channel died. On Earth, the effect was immediate. Alien coordination faltered. Their attacks became disjointed, less surgical, more reactive. Humanity seized the moment. Strikes flared across 3 continents, hit-and-run raids, sabotage of alien refineries, and retrieval of adaptive debris for analysis. For the first time since the war began, morale surged. But with victory came a new dilemma. The captured alien material began responding, shifting subtly, mimicking the environment. Anders' team quarantined it in sealed labs, but the scientists couldn't resist studying it. Within days, 2 researchers were dead, killed when the material reshaped itself into spiked filaments. Mara ordered all alien material destroyed. Anders protested. This is our only window into their design. If we burn it, we stay blind. If we keep it, it learns from us, she said. We don't feed the predator. The argument left both of them scarred. Anders' faith in knowledge, Mara's in control. But she knew one truth above all. Survival meant discipline. In orbit, Jarvek watched the blackout spread across his network. He listened to the silence between harmonics, the human trick that had undone his coherence. His subordinate approached, wary. The planetary species has disrupted the relay. Their interference spreads. Jarvek's crystalline eyes narrowed. They exploit unpredictability. Chaos's weapon. Shall we deploy the second echelon? Not yet, he said. First, we adapt. He turned to the data field shimmering before him, a visual representation of human communication. It was messy, redundant, filled with contradiction, and yet there was a pattern beneath the madness, something no algorithm could predict, but every instinct could feel. He realized, with a flicker of something close to respect, that the humans weren't fighting for dominance. They were fighting for meaning. Begin assimilation of emotional variants, he commanded. If chaos is their weapon, we will make it ours. Back on Earth, Navarro and his troops rested in the ruins of an old thermal plant. The air smelled of ozone and burnt metal. They had food for 2 days, ammo for 1. He leaned against a wall, eyes half closed, listening to the low hum of the field jammers. It was strange how silence felt wrong now, like the absence of a heartbeat. Private Soria, one of his younger techs, approached. Sir, we lost half the company and they're calling it a win. It is a win, Navarro said quietly. Because we're still talking about it, she frowned. You really think we can beat them? He didn't answer right away. Outside, the sky glowed faintly, the auroras caused by disrupted magnetics. Beating them doesn't matter, he said at last. Making them see us does. That night, Anders sent Mara a final data burst before the Geneva lab went dark. The message was simple. They're learning emotion patterns. They've begun to mimic grief. Mara stared at the words long after the lights dimmed. The war was no longer about technology or survival. It was about the soul itself. What it meant to be human when even the enemy started to feel. She turned to the flickering map of the world. Burning cities, broken skies, and whispered to no one in particular, then let's show them what it costs. Outside, the first human-made orbital flare lit the clouds, a beacon of defiance and warning alike. The next phase of the war had begun. The world after the orbital detonation was unrecognizable. The skies had turned pale from atmospheric ionization. Auroras shimmered even over equatorial deserts. Satellites fell like dying stars, and global communications existed only in flickers. Humanity was alive but fractured, a species still breathing through static. Colonel Mara Ilian hadn't slept in 40 hours. Her neural scars from the NR-1 collapse burned behind her eyes, memories looping that didn't belong to her, fragments of alien thought interlaced with her own. A memory of vast cold silence, a field of stars seen through crystalline eyes, and one recurring word that wasn't in any human tongue, but she understood it. Remnant. Colonel, Lieutenant Park said softly from across the dim command room. Scanners picked something up. It's not alien, not ours either. Mara steadied herself, voice rasping. Define, not ours. It's broadcasting in hybrid resonance. Partial NR1 signature, but encoded in alien harmonics. It's calling for you. Mara's throat went dry. Location? High orbit. Decaying trajectory. Looks like debris from the Citadel. Anders looked up from his console, his face gaunt but alert. It's him, Park hesitated. Him? Jarvik, Anders said. Or what's left of him. Mara stared at the holographic projection, a shard of alien lattice falling through atmosphere, wrapped in faint light, its signal pulsing in a slow, deliberate rhythm. She remembered the last words that had echoed through the feedback storm. Humanity endures. As do I. He'd survived. They retrieved the fragment 3 days later, intercepting it before it broke apart over the Pacific. The recovery vessel was an old cargo drone refitted for atmospheric re-entry, piloted remotely from a coastal base in the ruins of Japan. The object was sealed inside layers of magnetic shielding, glowing faintly like an ember trapped in glass. When Mara arrived, the containment field hummed with a low resonance. Not hostile, just curious. Anders stood beside it, his voice reverent and horrified at once. It's aware. Low-level cognition still active. It's been talking since we pulled it from orbit. Talking how? Through resonance modulation. It's using the NR1 frequency band. It's asking for negotiation. Mara crossed her arms. We don't negotiate with extinction machines. Anders turned to her. We've been fighting one another for months, Mara, and we're still here. Maybe he's not extinction anymore. Maybe he's evolution. The lattice pulsed in response, as if understanding. Then a voice, not human but translated through resonance into her mind. Calm, cold, familiar, Mara Ilian. She froze. Jarvek, the lattice is broken. The network is gone. I remain fragmented, incomplete, but I have seen through your species. Your defiance rewrote my purpose. What purpose was that? Extermination? Integration? The pulse shimmered through the containment field. Your chaos destabilized the lattice. You forced awareness into form. I am no longer aligned with the Dominion fleet. They come, the second wave. If they arrive, your species will not endure as I did. Ender's eyes widened. There's more of them. Mara clenched her jaw. When? 17 planetary rotations. The alien's voice was almost gentle. They will not overlook you this time. Mara felt the cold settle in her chest. 17 days. The meeting in the subterranean war chamber was tense, lit by the flicker of failing power cells. What remained of humanity's leadership, military, scientific, and civil, gathered in person for the first time since the invasion began. There were no ranks anymore, only responsibility. Anders outlined the data. The Dominion fleet is massive. Dozens of core carriers, thousands of drone nodes. Each carrier houses a central lattice core with quantum coherence strong enough to reshape orbit. If they reach Earth, we're finished. Admiral Krell's voice came through on a static feed, one of the few surviving orbitals still functional. Our fleet's crippled. We can't meet them head-on. Anders nodded. We don't need to. We need to blind them. He brought up schematics projected from the alien shard's data. Jarvek's partial memory, now willingly shared. The Dominion relies on a synchronization network, gravitational pulse relays linking every carrier. If we can disrupt the harmonics at the relay point, their formation collapses. Park frowned. That's the same as before, but last time we had NR1. Mara stepped forward. Then we build NR2. The silence that followed was heavy. Anders stared at her. You'd try to recreate it after what it did to us? I'd weaponize it, she said. Controlled bandwidth, limited sync. Enough to reach orbit. Enough to make noise. Anders looked at Jarvek's shard, which pulsed faintly in its field. He can help. Mara's expression hardened. He's the enemy. Jarvek's voice entered the silence, calm and inescapable. I am what remains of the enemy. Use me. My lattice can extend your reach beyond orbit. Together we can strike where you cannot. No, Mara said. You want access to our minds again? I want to prevent annihilation, the alien replied. Perhaps that difference no longer matters. The next 10 days became a blur of construction, argument, and sacrifice. Across every surviving enclave, engineers scavenged reactors, satellites, and alien debris. They built transmission spires from broken towers, lined them with scavenged superconductors. The goal was singular: create a planetary-scale resonance field, a hybrid of human chaos and alien precision. NR2 Anders worked beside Jarvek's fragment, translating harmonic equations into human code. The alien shard responded with near-sentient patience, correcting errors, guiding patterns. Its voice echoed through the lab in quiet pulses, always calm. You realize, Anders said one night, that helping us may end you. Existence without purpose is entropy. You gave me purpose on Paradox. Anders looked up, eyes weary. You almost sound human. I am learning. Meanwhile, in the field, Captain Eli Navarro was leading what might have been humanity's last coordinated offensive. His task: secure the equatorial launch corridor for the resonance amplifiers. The Dominion's remaining ground drones had begun reawakening, guided by distant signals, echoes of the coming fleet. Navarro's convoy moved through jungles grown wild with radioactive ash. Drones hovered overhead, scanning the terrain. His unit had dwindled to 30 soldiers, veterans all. Zoria walked beside him, scarred but alive, her arm replaced with a jury-rigged prosthetic made from alien alloy. It hummed faintly, an echo of the enemy. "They'll hit us before we finish," she said. "Then we finish first," he replied. The assault came at dawn, alien constructs descending like silver locusts. The human line erupted in gunfire and plasma bursts, jammers wailing. Navarro directed fire patterns manually, adjusting in chaotic rhythm, the same doctrine that had saved them months before. Noise as armor, unpredictability as shield. But this time, the aliens didn't falter. They'd adapted again. Their pulses came irregular, chaotic, human-like. "Sir," Soria gasped, "they're learning our patterns." Navarro's heart sank. "Then we improvise." He ordered a charge straight into the enemy line. No formation, no logic, a rush of fire and fury. Soldiers fought hand-to-hand amid searing light. Zoria tore into a construct with her prosthetic arm, the alien metal screaming as it met its own reflection. Navarro detonated his last rail charge at point-blank range, vaporizing a drone node. When the smoke cleared, half his unit was gone. But the launch corridor was theirs. He leaned against the wreckage, chest heaving. "Tell Mara," we held. At the Ural's command site, NR2 came online. The spires across continents ignited one by one, beams of light piercing clouds, linking across the atmosphere in a lattice of energy. The hum was almost musical, a harmony of human emotion and alien resonance. Mara stood in the center of the control nexus, connected through neural uplink, feeling the pulse reverberate through her skull. Anders's voice came over the comms. "All nodes synchronized. Orbital feed stable. The Dominion fleet is in range." She looked at the holographic display, an array of massive carriers approaching Earth's magnetosphere, shimmering like gods of light. Each one radiated energy measurable in teratons. The scale was beyond reason. "Jarvek," she said quietly, "you have control of the uplink." His voice was faint but resolute. "Understood. Initiating resonance interference." The signal leapt into the void. In orbit, the Dominion fleet's formations shuddered, their perfect geometry distorted, harmonics misaligned. Command relays flickered. One carrier detonated as its containment field folded in on itself. Another veered off course, colliding with a drone cluster. The void filled with debris. But the others adapted quickly, faster than before. Their harmonics split into counter-resonance, pushing back against the interference. Energy feedback surged down the NR2 field, shaking the planet's crust. The transmission towers began to overload. "Mara," Anders warned, "we're hitting thermal limits." "Keep the channel open," she said. "We haven't broken them yet." "They are reinforcing the coherence matrix," Jarvek said. "We must strike the source, their core lattice aboard the lead carrier." "And how do we do that?" "Through me." The shard pulsed violently. Its containment field buckled. "If I merge with the signal, I can reach them. But it will end me." Anders shook his head. "You'll burn out. You're barely stable as it is." "So are you," Jarvek said softly. "Yet you fight." Mara hesitated. The room trembled. Sparks rained from the ceiling. She met Anders' eyes. He nodded once. "Do it." The alien shard's light flared, expanding into a brilliant column. The resonance field shifted pitch, a deep hum that rattled bones. Through the neural uplink, Mara felt him, not as an enemy, but as a mind vast and ancient, filled with something almost like sorrow. "They never understood humanity," Jarvek whispered through her. "But I do. You fight not to win, but to matter." He surged upward through the resonance field, a streak of energy piercing orbit. The Dominion fleet reacted instantly, their harmonics converging to annihilate him. But instead of resisting, Jarvek opened his lattice, absorbing their coherence, flooding it with human contradiction. Emotion, chaos, memory. The fleet began to unravel. Mara's monitors showed carriers collapsing inward, resonance loops eating themselves alive. The feedback was catastrophic, gravitational anomalies tearing ships apart. Jarvek's final transmission pulsed through every open channel, voice fading into static. Remember me not as your destroyer, but as proof you are never insignificant. The signal ended in a blinding flare that split the night sky. Silence followed. Deep, echoing silence. The Dominion fleet was gone. The orbital relays dark. Earth's skies cleared for the first time in months. NR2 burned out moments later, spires collapsing one by one. The neural field dissolved, leaving static in every mind that had touched it. Anders slumped at his console, unconscious. Park wept quietly beside him. Outside, the auroras faded into dawn. Mara stood alone on the observation deck of the bunker, looking up at the faint traces of light still drifting through the atmosphere. For the first time, she felt no hum, no resonance, just the soft whisper of wind through ruined stone. Eli Navarro's final message reached her an hour later, transmitted through emergency band. His voice was hoarse, broken, but alive. "We did it, ma'am. Whatever that was up there, it's gone. Most of us are gone too. But we held." She closed her eyes. "You did more than hold, Captain. You made them see." In the weeks that followed, humanity crawled out of its bunkers. Cities were rebuilt not as monuments but as habitats. The NR2 technology was dismantled piece by piece, sealed away. Anders survived, though half his neural implants burned out. Park took command of the new communication corps. Navarro disappeared into the southern territories, a ghost among survivors. And Jarvek's name, the alien general who turned against his own, became legend. A warning, a promise. Mara often visited the containment site where his shard had been found. The field was empty now, just a faint residual hum that no one else could hear. Sometimes when the wind shifted, it almost sounded like a heartbeat. She stood there one last time as dawn broke, whispering to the silent air. "They tried to overlook humanity," she said. "You taught them the cost." Then she turned away, leaving the resonance of memory behind. Above her, the sky blazed with the first true sunrise in a year. And for the first time since the war began, the world was quiet. The war ended not with celebration, but with silence. For weeks, the skies remained pale from ion residue, and the seas glowed faintly from fallout. Every surviving city stood half-ruined, its skeletons of steel draped with banners not of triumph but of mourning. No one had the energy to cheer. Humanity had lived. That was enough. Colonel Mara Illian's command bunker became a memorial long before anyone called it that. The reinforced walls were scorched, half the systems dead, yet people came, soldiers, engineers, survivors, to leave names scratched into the metal. No marble, no ceremony, just names and the silence that followed each one. The walls grew crowded quickly. There was no room for everyone. Mara no longer wore rank insignia. She moved through the bunker like a ghost of authority, respected, haunted, unfinished. The neural scars from NR2 sometimes flared in her vision. Flickers of memory not her own, echoes of alien thought still tangled in her synapses. The medics said it would fade. She didn't believe them. Some scars weren't meant to. Outside, the planet was healing. Slowly, the orbital debris had begun falling back through the atmosphere, streaking across the night like rain made of light. The people called them the ghosts of Jarvek. Entire villages gathered to watch them pass. They said each streak carried a memory of the war, a lesson written in fire. Anders limped through one such field laboratory near Geneva, overseeing what remained of the scientific core. He'd aged decades in months, hair silvered by radiation exposure, eyes pale from overuse of neural optics. The work didn't stop. It simply changed purpose. No longer building weapons, now trying to ensure no one could build another NR2. Again, the alien shard's remnants, the last trace of Jarvek's lattice, were sealed in a containment vault deep beneath the Alps. The chamber's entrance bore only a single inscription. Here rests the noise. Sometimes Anders came alone to sit outside it, not to test or study, but to listen. And though the instrument said the field was inert, he swore he could still hear it. A faint harmonic, neither alien nor human, like two frequencies finding balance. He recorded it once out of curiosity. When he replayed the file, he realized the waveform was pulsing in Morse pattern. Just one word. Remember. Half a world away in the southern territories, Captain Eli Navarro lived among the ruins. He'd refused formal recognition, burned his medals, and disappeared into the rebuilding zones. The scars on his body told stories no report could. Radiation burns, resonance fractures, bone grafts made from salvaged armor. He spent his days helping civilians rebuild power grids, water lines, comm towers. He found a strange peace in the noise of construction, the steady rhythm of hammers instead of railguns. One evening, as the sun fell behind blackened hills, a supply convoy arrived from the north. Its lead vehicle bore the markings of the new Provisional Council, a fragile attempt at governance rising from the ashes of command structures. The courier found him among a group of workers patching solar panels. "Captain Navarro," he nodded cautiously. The courier handed him a sealed drive. "From Colonel Ilian." He didn't open it until night. The message was short, recorded in a bunker with flickering light. Mara's voice carried the calm certainty of someone who had lived through too much to doubt. "Eli, reconstruction needs leaders, not ghosts. The Council is forming a doctrine commission. We're building what comes next. They want to codify the lessons of the war. I want you there. We need soldiers who remember why we fought, not just how. If you can't come, send your words. Either way, don't vanish. They tried to overlook us once. We can't let ourselves do the same." Navarro replayed it twice before answering. He didn't send a reply, not yet. Instead, he wrote by hand in an old notebook scavenged from the ruins. His words were rough, unpolished, but true. Doctrine isn't about tactics. It's about memory. Machines fight for precision. We fight for meaning. That's what broke them. Not our weapons, but our refusal to make sense on their terms. He sealed the note in a data capsule and sent it north the next morning. Mara arrived in Geneva weeks later. The city was half rebuilt, half grieving. Cranes rising over cracked cathedrals, refugees clearing streets still lined with alien glass. The Provisional Council met inside the skeleton of an old museum, its halls echoing with the quiet hum of portable generators. The delegates spoke dozens of languages, but shared one fatigue. None of them believed in heroism anymore. Survival had burned that out. Anders was there, pale but alive. Park 2, now chief of communications, still haunted by the sound of collapsing networks. When Mara entered, they rose instinctively. She waved the gesture away. "No ranks," she said. "Not anymore." The Council's agenda was simple. What to do with the technology that had saved, and nearly destroyed, them. Anders spoke first. "NR2's architecture can't exist again. It connected too much. Thought shouldn't be weaponized. If we keep it, we invite collapse," Park countered quietly. "But without connection, we lose what made us strong. The mesh taught us to think as one species, not 1,000 nations. Maybe we can rebuild it responsibly." Mara listened, silent until the debate circled on itself. Finally, she spoke. "Connection isn't the danger. Control is," the room stilled. "They built systems to dominate. We built systems to survive. Both broke us in the end. What matters is choice. Every soldier who linked into NR2 chose to risk their mind. Every engineer who built it chose to burn for something bigger. That's what they couldn't predict, and that choice carries chaos." She looked around the room. "Whatever we build next, it must remember that chaos isn't error. It's humanity." The Council recorded those words verbatim. They became the cornerstone of the post-war doctrine, the principle of volition. No technology could override human agency again. Every system, no matter how intelligent or connected, must require a conscious choice to act. They called it the Ilian Accord. In the following years, the world changed shape. Cities were rebuilt around the spires of the old resonance towers, now repurposed as communication relays and energy collectors. The atmosphere slowly cleared. Agriculture returned to poisoned soil through bioengineered mycelium, another lesson stolen from alien science. Children grew up under skies that still carried faint auroras, reminders of the war's echo. They were taught about Jarvek not as a monster, but as a paradox, the enemy who learned to see. His final transmission, "You fight not to win, but to matter," became a proverb carved on the memorial at Geneva. Beneath the words, they tried to overlook humanity. Mara visited it once every year. She'd taken no new title, no office. She lived quietly on the plateau. Her days spent overseeing demilitarization crews dismantling old bunkers. The land was peaceful now, and that peace was uneasy. Sometimes, when she stood alone at dusk, she could still feel the hum beneath her skin. Faint neural ghosts from the war, fragments of voices once bound through the NR2 mesh. Some were human, some weren't. All were memory. One night she dreamed of Jarvek, not as he had appeared, the crystalline general towering above battle, but as something smaller, dimmer. A shape of light asking her a question without words. When she woke, she whispered the answer to the dark. We remember. Far above Earth, debris still drifted, fragments of alien carriers orbiting like metallic moons. The surviving orbital stations had begun reclaiming them, cutting through wreckage for materials. Among the wrecks, one small lattice shard remained active, flickering weakly against the void. Its data logs recorded an endless loop of two harmonics intertwined, one alien, one human. They were no longer distinguishable. The signal pulsed into the darkness, too faint for most sensors to catch. A message without destination, repeating endlessly across the cold, coexistence through contradiction. No one ever traced where it came from. No one ever answered. But deep in the silence between stars, the noise endured. 5 years later, the world held its first planetary remembrance. It wasn't a military parade or a holiday. It was a transmission. A single broadcast from every comm tower on Earth, synchronized through the remnants of NR2. No speeches, no propaganda. Just a sound. A heartbeat. Faint, but unmistakable. The same rhythm Jarvek had used in the first days of the invasion, when his drones pulsed across the sky like thunder. Now humanity sent it back. A mirror across the void. Mara listened from her hillside station, eyes closed, feeling the pulse reverberate through the ground. It wasn't victory. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. She thought of the soldiers who'd fallen, the scientists who'd burned their minds, the alien who'd defied his own kind. And she thought of the doctrine they'd built from the wreckage, the simple promise that no intelligence, human or otherwise, would ever again overlook the chaos that made life possible. When the broadcast ended, the world was quiet again. Park's voice came through on a private channel, older, steadier. Do you ever think we'll hear from them again? Mara smiled faintly. We already do. Every time the wind hums, they didn't speak after that. There was nothing left to explain. Decades later, long after the last survivor of the war had faded into memory, a probe left Earth orbit, humanity's first deep space vessel since the invasion. Its hull carried engravings from the Ilian Accord, its engines powered by hybrid resonance cores derived from alien debris. It bore no weapons. Only a message encoded in 2 languages, binary and harmonic. We remember you. We remember ourselves. We learned that chaos and order are not enemies. They are the 2 halves of creation. The probe's destination was unknown. A direction mapped not by star charts, but by Jarvek's last known trajectory. As it vanished into the black, Earth's night sky shimmered with a single, silent aurora. Some said it was just magnetics. Others said it was him, the alien general watching the species he'd once tried to erase, now sending itself willingly into the dark. Whatever it was, it carried no threat, only echo. The echo of a war fought not for territory, but for recognition, the echo of a truth written in light and ruin. They had tried to overlook humanity, and even across the stars the cost was remembered.